Have you ever felt the system was rigged against you? Like no matter how hard you tried, something invisible kept you stuck? What if avoiding emotions wasn't your idea, but something men were carefully taught so they'd stay disconnected from themselves and from you? What if financial literacy was intentionally kept from women? So even when love turned into harm, leaving felt impossible. What if the pain you feel in relationships isn't your fault or theirs alone, but the result of a system built to keep everyone doubting themselves and too afraid to break free? Welcome back to the Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Podcast. I'm Lynn, your host. Right around episode 85, our podcast was renamed to the Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Podcast, formerly Moving Forward with Hope, Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Podcast. Please be sure you are subscribed to our podcast. Today, we are going to unpack how patriarchy created a perfect trap by engineering two devastating forms of illiteracy: emotional illiteracy in men and financial illiteracy in women. We'll explore how these patterns were built, why they were so effective at keeping people trapped, and how understanding these forces can help you reclaim your power and live on your own terms. Because when you see how the trap was made, you realize it's not you who's broken. It's the system that needs dismantling. This is a doozy of an episode. Share it. We are adding in subtitles and updating descriptions on our older episodes. If you've saved or shared direct links, please double check they still work. Our podcast is hosted on a cast, which distributes to all major platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Pandora, iHeartRadio. Last we checked, we are on 29 different podcast platforms. You can always subscribe on Acast to be sure you have the most up-to-date link and up-to-date episodes and receive them as soon as we publish them. Some exciting things are unfolding behind the scenes. Stay tuned for additional updates coming soon. So, what is emotional illiteracy? Emotional illiteracy means not knowing how to identify, name, or express your feelings. It's like having emotions surge through your body, but no words or tools to understand or share them. Imagine a boy who's scolded when he cries, teased when he shows fear, praised only when he hides pain. By the time he's a man, he's learned to shut down or explode, but never to communicate what's going on inside. Emotional illiteracy isn't just awkward or inconvenient. It's dangerous. It leaves people disconnected from themselves, unable to connect with others, and vulnerable to manipulation because they can't trust their own internal cues. And now a quick definition on financial illiteracy. It is the lack of knowledge or confidence to earn, manage, and protect your own money. But it goes deeper. It's the conditioning that teaches you money is not your domain, that you must depend on someone else for financial security. Historically, women were denied the right to own property, inherit wealth, or even open a bank account without a man's approval. Even today, many women grow up hearing that money talk is for men or unladylike. Financial illiteracy keeps people trapped in unhealthy relationships and power imbalances. It turns love into dependence, forcing women to stay where they are neither safe nor valued, or in a narcissistic, abusive relationship, for example. This wasn't a few bad individuals pushing outdated ideas. This was a society-wide operation spanning centuries. For boys, emotional suppression was enforced through fathers, schools, media, and even religion. They were taught to equate masculinity with emotional numbness and aggression. For girls, financial suppression was achieved through legal restrictions and cultural norms. In many places, women couldn't own land, control their own wages, or access credit well into the 20th century. The very structures of law, church, and custom conspired to keep women economically tied to men. This is not ancient history. It shaped our parents, grandparents, and still echoes in subtle ways today. What did the patriarchy take from men? Let's break it down so you can feel just how deliberately these patterns were crafted to work together. Emotional vocabulary, reduced until words like grief, joy, fear, or love disappeared, replaced by anger, sarcasm, or forced indifference, comfort with vulnerability, beaten out of them until any softness felt dangerous, until sharing hurt felt like handing someone a weapon to use against them, skills to comfort themselves or others, never taught, leaving men panicking when someone cried or lashing out instead of leaning in, freedom to explore their full humanity, suffocated, so nurturing, creativity, and tenderness were shamed as weak or unmanly, leaving only a narrow, rigid shell of what it means to be human. And for the women, what did the patriarchy try to take from women? Financial independence, stolen by denying them education, blocking them from skilled trades, and barring them from owning property or opening a bank account without a man's permission. Security outside marriage. So completely erased that leaving an abusive partner meant risking everything, from your children to your reputation to your own life. Ownership of anger, stolen by branding it as hysteria, labeling any strong feeling as a sign you were unfit or irrational, making righteous rage into something to fear instead of harness. Trust in your own instincts, broken by constant gaslighting. So you learn to doubt what you saw with your eyes, what you felt in your body, and what you knew in your bones. Have you ever felt like you were speaking a different language when you tried to share your feelings with someone emotionally shut down? Have you wondered why so many women stayed in marriages that drained them of life and hope? Could you imagine a world where men were emotionally literate, able to name sadness, joy, fear, and love, and offer comfort instead of silence or rage? Could you imagine a world where women were financially literate, able to earn, save, invest, and leave what harms them without fear of losing everything? Could you imagine relationships chosen freely, not out of desperation, where both partners are whole, connected, and unafraid to be real? Because when men reclaim their hearts and women reclaim their financial power, the system that we follow begins to crumble and things start to shift. What would happen if people were autonomous and able to be independent, able to do things as they wished and wanted? What we are seeing is this very thing. Women are gaining in economic power, and the men are beginning to see the value in emotional intelligence if they wish to be a long-lasting partner. If you are new to our podcast, welcome. We have many new subscribers. Since episode 69, the Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Podcast has been fearlessly deconstructing the patriarchal systems that silence, shrink, and shame. We go beyond surface conversations, unraveling taboos, challenging outdated norms, and opening doors to topics so often labeled off-limits. Each episode invites you into bold, nuanced dialogue that validates lived experiences and empowers collective truth-telling. If you are ready to explore the deeper layers and follow the questions others will not ask, you are in the right place. This podcast exists to discuss the systems that diminish, control, and silence. We focus on what has been overlooked, question what has been normalized, and create space for healing, clarity, and collective strength. We serve as a resource of hope, encouragement, and validation, so victims of narcissistic abuse can rebuild their lives and pursue dreams, visions, and intentional living. Now, what is the cost of this trap of illiteracy? This engineered imbalance didn't just hurt individuals, it corroded entire families, communities, and cultures. Women lived in a fog of self-blame and fear, isolated by financial dependence and social shame. Men felt chronically misunderstood, angry, or numb, robbed of the depth and intimacy they craved but never learned to nurture. Children grew up learning these scripts, repeating them unconsciously in their own lives. Now, a little bit about the system that operates behind the scenes, that seems to keep everything going seamlessly, though invisibly, but a couple of things I want to point out about that system. The patriarchy is not about individual men being inherently evil or women being helpless. It is a social system intentionally created and enforced by men over generations to secure and protect their dominance. From childhood, men were conditioned to believe this hierarchy was natural and right, just as women were conditioned to comply, self-silence, and even police themselves and one another. This mutual conditioning made patriarchy feel normal, leaving it unchallenged for centuries. It was not until women began speaking out and demanding equality that many men were even forced to see patriarchy for what it is. And even then, many chose to defend it because questioning it meant risking the comfort of unearned power. Recognizing that men are both products and active carriers of patriarchy does not absolve them of responsibility. Instead, it highlights the urgent need for both men and women to unlearn these harmful scripts together and to build relationships and communities grounded in mutual respect and equality. You might wonder, what does all of this have to do with narcissistic abuse? The answer is everything. Because when men are conditioned to be emotionally illiterate, they're more likely to resort to domination, manipulation, or withdrawal in relationships. Classic narcissistic behaviors, because they were taught connection is weakness and control is power. When women are conditioned to be financially dependent, they're more likely to feel trapped in relationships with narcissistic partners, even when they see red flags, because leaving feels impossible without security. This two-pronged trap doesn't just harm men and women separately. It creates the perfect storm for narcissistic abuse to flourish. One partner unable or unwilling to connect emotionally. The other conditioned to stay, silence themselves, and second-guess their reality. Seeing this connection isn't about blaming yourself for being in an abusive relationship. It's about recognizing the cultural scripts that made you more vulnerable, so you can break free, heal, and build relationships that honor your truth. When a system teaches us to silence ourselves, accept blame, or feel unworthy, it creates the perfect environment for abusers to manipulate, control, and exploit. By questioning these scripts, we don't just heal individually, we also build resilience against patterns of narcissistic abuse that thrive in silence and self-doubt. Since episode 69, where we explored the Great Divorce and the widening gap between men and women in relationships, we've been digging deeper, unpacking social conditioning, calling out collective blind spots, and confronting the ways patriarchy shows up in our everyday lives. That episode marked a shift for this podcast. From there, we've been unraveling patriarchy from every angle, and yes, sometimes sideways too. We've also been connecting these patterns to narcissism and emotional abuse in ways that aren't often talked about. And also, episode 88. Listen to this episode as well. We unpack what would happen if men respected women, and we take a look at it from various sources. First, we break down this concept of respect toward women, which is worth your time and energy to hear this perspective. But then we take it further and paint the picture to what it would look like if men respected women in relationships, in the workplace, in partnerships, or marriage, and then we talk about what it would like between the sheets. When we talk about narcissistic abuse, and then we unfold the patriarchy, there is really no stone unturned. The patriarchy affects us all in every area of life, as you can see from this episode. If you are curious and want to learn more, dive into this episode today and absorb the info. If you haven't heard that one yet, make a note to listen after this episode. It lays a foundational path for everything we've uncovered since. It sets the tone for everything we've been unpacking and bringing to light since. And then also, head on over to episode 86 and 87, where we break down the pick-me culture. Some of you may know this or may not, but I grew up in this pick-me culture deeply embedded in the evangelical church, and we discuss how the pick-me culture is toxic toward women and so much more. Listen to those today. And of course, if you are benefiting from the material, our content, head to our tip jar, link in the description, and toss a positive review our way. It greatly helps our podcast, and we appreciate it. Thank you to so many who have left us a positive review. We have additional resources on our website at movingforwardafterabuse.com, and visit our Gumroad store at waketheelephant.gumroad.com for downloadable episodes and more. These links are in the description. Visit our website at movingforwardafterabuse.com for additional resources, and of course we are on Substack and Medium as well. We covered a lot of ground in this episode. Thank you for being here. This is Lynn, and this has been another episode of the Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Podcast. Thank you for listening. Drop us a positive review if you are enjoying our show. I'll catch you in the next one. This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. The content shared is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, please seek help from a qualified professional or contact a local crisis hotline.